There are many ways to change our thought patterns for healing and manifesting better circumstances in our lives. My way is to talk to Abel. Abel has this unusual ability to connect one's subconscious mind and to untangle the energy fields that keep us from moving forward. Abel says humbly that he is one of the many in the world, but for me, he's a unicorn because I've never even heard of somebody else like him. Abel's mission in life is to make this world a better place by helping one person at a time. Abel, welcome to my podcast. You have a very diverse background. You studied neuroscience. You were a talk and massage therapist for many years. You are a master in meditation practices. You've been involved in the human development field for the past 20 plus years. You also lived around the world. For the most part of your life, you lived in the United States, in different parts of the country. You're born in the Philippines, and for the past 7 years, I believe, you've traveled the world, lived in different countries. And in the past, maybe a couple of years, 2 years, you lived in Portugal, which I think you want to make it your home. Please add to my understanding of your background, and also tell us, what is your mission in life?
Okay. Maybe we can work a little backwards.
Sure.
And then we'll add a little context to it. So, now I'm going to be 42 in a couple weeks, October 21st. And what's the date today?
My mom is born on October 22nd.
Wow, we're like twins.
Almost.
Birthday twins.
Almost.
So yeah, it's October 6th. And, I'll be 42. And I know moving into my 40s, like I was 38, 39, I was like, all of a sudden it's like 40s, as you know, it's like, especially for men, it's all about like legacy, right? But it's the Western version of legacy. And the Western version of legacy is all about achievement that people can see. It's like, oh, what is your
Yes.
job title? What have you done in terms of like what could be quantified?
Shown.
Yeah, what is shown?
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh no, what have I done? I haven't done anything. In terms of like the Western model, I was like, I'm not a top executive in a corporation or this or that, and just still trying to figure it out. And then through that contemplation and digging, I realized I was doing my legacy all along from day one. When I became a therapist when I was like around 22, so since 22, I've been touching lives one person at a time in a very deep way. First was massage. But then, like you said, it transitioned to talk therapy and things like that. I was a biodynamic cranial sacral therapist, which is, that's a long word.
Yes.
But I remember working in a hospital, in a physical rehab center, and I was doing this cranial work. And, it was all car accident victims in New York City, right? So I had like 20 patients every morning. And the kind of, and I was only like, I was like 23, 24 years old. And the kind of results that I had doing the cranial sacral therapy work was so influential. Like the patients, would get the injections.
I don't know what that therapy is. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, I'll describe it. But, the patients will get cortisol injections to help them with their pain, because if you were in a car accident and you have a missing limb,
Yes.
or again you're just
Yeah.
kind of beaten up from the car accident, they would get the cortisol shots, and it would give them just like 3 days relief, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if your baseline experience is pain, right, like
Yes.
every
Yeah.
waking moment of your life is pain, that 3 days of relief is like heaven, right?
Yes.
So I would
Yes.
do this
Yeah.
cranial therapy, this very subtle manipulation of the mind and how that affects another human being. Like, then they would have no pain for a week or 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, in comparison to 3 days of the cortisol.
Yes. Wow.
So, and that was with no medicine.
Medication. No
Yeah, no
medication. Yeah.
medication. So that brought hope to the patient. And having hope goes even further than any kind of medication or this that, because then the person just knows, wow, there's something in my body that allows me to not have pain. There's hope that I can exist
Yes.
this way, like, rather than having the baseline experience of just being excruciating pain 24/7, and relying on chemicals to, and being like, oh, is this my life from now on? I have to rely on chemicals and have that chemical feeling, or that feeling of being, open and like, pain free. So as a young therapist, that motivated me to be like, oh, I should pursue this subtle therapy. And so I just kept going. I was always taking a few courses to one course like every weekend. So my mission in life has always been the same, which is to touch the hearts of individuals one person at a time, right? Giving them hope, giving them the tools to be able to, I don't want to use the word transcend their story, but that's kind of like what's coming in. But giving them the tools to be able to participate in creating the life that they wish to have, even in this crazy times.
We started working together about a year ago, I think. What I know about you is that you have this unusual ability to access the subconscious mind, to give it what you call downloads, which I'm not quite sure what they are, energy boosts, or the subconscious mind absorbs this energy that you give and starts acting on this over time. And that's how people see their lives transformed. This is my understanding from what we from our work together. Is this how you would describe what you do right now?
Sure. So let me go ahead and quickly connect, and then I'll come back and give you a channeled version, right? Because there's the Abel
Okay.
version, right? Me with like my history, me as a person, as an individual. But when I'm channeling, I'm connecting to that part of myself that's connected to everything, right? So then the answer might be a little bit different. It's not going to be specific to my opinions, but I'm tapping into that like part of us, that part of myself, which is connected to everything, which is connected to the cosmos. So I'll give you like the cosmos's version.
Which is in layman words is the collective subconscious mind.
um, Let me channel that too. Let's see here. How can I frame this in a way that we can be general and we can understand and be a little bit more specific also, right?
Yes.
And then we want to give people the tools to be able to have an understanding, right? Because
Yes. Yes.
that's also important. So there's a
Yes.
distinction between what is conceptual knowledge and what is
Yes.
embodied knowledge, right? It's like when we start to talk about something that is abstract and like love, right? Love is abstract, right?
Yes.
And people, we can conceptualize what love is, right? Love is this,
Yes.
love is that, love, right? But then an
Yeah.
embodied feeling of love is like, what's the sensations of love and how does it feel through
Oh,
your
okay.
body?
Yeah.
So that's the difference between embodying something as a felt sense versus
And the concept. Yeah.
the concept of it or the idea of it. And that's
Yes.
why we have poets, you know, some poets like Rumi or other
Mm-hmm.
poets that are known to describe in words something that is undescribable, that is mysterious, right? That is at the
Yes.
level of essence, right? They're able to talk about love in a way that like you can feel it through their words, right? It's like, how does that happen? So I will do my best to describe in words and through talking, um, uh, and get people to have an embodied sense or a visceral sense of like what love is or what being intuitive is. Yeah, because being
Okay.
intuitive um, is not like something special, you know, that I can do and other special people can do, right? So let's just say being intuitive is I mean, that's just something that we are. We are intuitive. We know how to tap in to the felt sense of what's right, what's wrong, you know, what motivates us, right? It's just being able to connect to something that's beyond words, right?
Yes, but for sure, your intuition power is exceptional because you're able to connect to events in my life that I have even forgotten about them. And you're able to describe what I felt with so much accuracy that um, not everybody can do that for sure, and nobody else that I've met can do that. So that I would call an extraordinary power. Maybe you got to it through harnessing it through practice, but it's still extraordinary. I remember our first session. In our first session, you healed the wound related to my father. And I've always known in my heart until I will be able to forgive my father, only after that I'll be able to um, move on in my life and open my heart to love, to the good that surrounds me. Until our session, I've always thought of my father with resentment. And now I have no resentment for him, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, so you're very intuitive, and you connect with the collective subconscious mind, or you described it as the cosmos.
Yeah, so you know, there's a lot of nuances to this landscape, right? Because this is the landscape of, you know, we're going to close our eyes and then all of a sudden we're in this whole other dimension of our mind and our self, right? Uh, that is effortless, that is endless, right? Because when we open our mind, when we open our eyes, we see a finite world,
Yes.
right? We see finite structures. Our body is finite. Even our concept of space, time, and we live, right? We are conceived. Our life begins, right? And then at some point we die. This is finite, right? But when we close our eyes, we go into the infinite. Rather than being afraid of this infinite space, this infinite possibility, you start to go, okay, well, I am acknowledging that I'm in this infinite space, right, of my mind, and it's infinite possibilities, right? So we're only limited to what our mind can conceive of, right? And also there's all these rules in terms of like natural selection and this and that. So a lot of this work is breaking away from these rules or expanding on them. You know, it's like we're updating our human potential. right? But we can't just jump from one paradigm to the next, right? We have to do these little leaps. So basically, that's what my work does. And when I use the term download, right? For example, in your case, we identified some challenges that you were ready to, put closure in, right? And it just took, you deciding that you were arriving to those moments, and then someone like myself who has that skill to identify it and saying, hey, you're ready. And this is how we can take it from where you are now to the other side, right? Meaning like going from one set of experience, meaning like, you haven't, there's still feelings of resentment and how that translates in the world, because that's energy, right? If you're resenting something, especially someone that's supposed to symbolize love, adoration, strength, right? And then if you had
Yes.
resentments, like, oh, I resent the person that was supposed to symbolize strength for me, or I resent the person that was supposed to nurture me, that's supposed to guide me in ways that I have the confidence to be out in the world, right? I'm kind of channeling
Yes.
right now. If the viewer can be like, oh, what's happening? Something's different's happening. So I'm just channeling, especially for Danielle. We're just kind of going back in that time frame. I'm not going for my memory. I'm just channeling it. So I'm being guided from that, cosmic energy. And the cosmic energy is just information that's flowing, right? It's flowing in Daniela's field. It's flowing in my field. It's flowing in that collective field, right? So again, remember how I said we have to kind of organize our mind and our thoughts, right? So I'm able to make the distinction of like, oh, this is Daniela's field. Daniela's field is breathing, around her. And then since we're in contact, it's also breathing around me. And whoever's listening, it's also breathing. We become connected to that part of us that's infinite.
So
And then
uh,
oh, go
this is
ahead.
also surprising because I am here in New Jersey, New York, close to New York, and you are in Portugal.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between like, and it's good to bounce back and forth, being like, oh yeah, there's that finite concept of the world, and then there's also another dimension that's infinite. So when you go into that infinite space, there is no 1 mile or 2 miles or 100 miles. There is none of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's just energy. Close, far, it's just energy.
Yeah. So again, it's like, do you want to conceptualize this from a finite place, or do you want to conceptualize it, or actually, do you want to embody it from an infinite place? So that involves cultivating that sensibility, because even in quantum physics, they have these different levels of describing the fundamental levels of reality, right? And we don't need to go there. Because what we're actually doing is we're talking about our direct experience, right? We don't need to quantify consciousness, but we can acknowledge that we are consciousness. We are conscious human beings having a conscious experience, right? And that's more relevant and real in the now, in terms of us having a conversation and the value it brings, and also the value it brings to the people the people that are engaging with us, and that's more
Yes.
relevant and real than any kind of quantifiable, objective data or this or that, right? So again,
Yes.
that's the
Yes.
distinction between conceptualizing something, right?
And
Oh,
embody.
and
Embodiment.
embodying it in the moment as a direct conscious experience, right? We are consciousness. We don't need to wait until there's data that proves that consciousness exists.
After our healing sessions, I asked you to do together manifesting sessions. And at our first manifesting session, I asked you, so what is my purpose in life? What I'm meant to dedicate my life to? And you connected to the what we were talking now about, the cosmic force or the collective subconscious mind or my subconscious mind. And you said, I see you doing a project together with powerful women and serving the community, something for the community. And you used more description. I didn't tell you at the time, but everything you're describing was exactly what I was writing down in my manifestation notebook. So I was thinking about how I wanted my life to be, what I actually would like to do, and I was writing that down. It was very surprising for me to hear you describe that in detail. So something that was just in my mind, just on the paper, you could see. So I already manifested it somewhere in an energy field. And then my interest shifted, and I started to be interested in acting. And well, again, because this is not the first time I was interested in acting. And so I went back to acting, and I again asked you, so what do you see me doing now? And again, you said, well, I see you, an energetic path for you for being in TV series. I don't know if you remember that conversation. And that was exactly, again, what I was writing down in my notebook. And you couldn't see anymore the project about the community with the women. So again, so my takeaway from that was, first of all, there is probably nothing that I am pre-ordered to do with my life. I have some abilities and some inclinations, and I will be attracted to some things. It's just up to me to choose what I want to do. My question to you is, how do we get from that energy field that I created from writing down to bringing that into reality around us?
Mm-hmm. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking of a joke. I was
Okay.
like, should the joke be, you know, before our sessions, I would call up your daughter and ask her to read your book, so I could be prepared. or,
You
or
need no preparation. I mean, you're amazing. Like
or call your
the
husband
details.
and be
Uh,
like, oh, read her journal for me so I can know what to say.
No, no, no. You are like, the detail you can put into these sessions is amazing. Actually, my husband at the beginning, he said, no, you must have told him something and he could infer. And, I was like, no, Abel does not talk. He's just telling you. And my husband could not believe until he did sessions with you, and now he knows.
Ah, yeah.
So if you
So
can talk to that, how does it transfer from an energy field that you could see in detail exactly what I put on the paper to reality?
yeah, so you know, when I was younger, I used to get a lot of intuitive readings from a few people, and then particularly from one woman who was really good at it. And you know, some people they just do readings, right? But as you know, um, for me, we do readings, but we also change your energy, right? By giving
Yes,
you downloads.
downloads. Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's the difference between someone just like giving you a cool reading, being like, oh my gosh, how did you know all those things? You know, give me more clarity, right? So we give you the
Mm-hmm.
clarity, but then we go, okay, well, if you want to truly manifest, you know, this kind of life, let's take a look at that, right? And
Yes.
how do we get you from where you are now to that, right? So that's the
Yes.
difference. Um, so going back to me receiving sessions when I was younger, and this woman, you know, she would do these fantastic readings, but you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor, so you know, I did that route for a while. And as you know, I did cognitive science rather than neuroscience. So the distinction
Okay.
between the two is neuroscience takes a you know the, takes a look at brain parts like neurons and things like that, right?
Okay,
And
yes.
what are the the human aspects of brain parts, right? So cognitive science takes a look at like the mind, right?
Yes.
Which you can turn that into kind of like numbers or
Yes.
computation, and it does separate of the brain parts.
Yes, which is
So it gets a little
neuroscience.
bit,
Okay.
yeah, it gets a little bit
Yeah.
more complicated. So I got a degree in that, but then I wanted to pursue medical school, so I started going that route also. And then in midway, um, I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. um, and then, you know, I tried finance and all these other things, but the intuitive readings was always there, but I was trying to have one foot in, one foot out. You know, I was like one foot in as a healer, one foot out. I didn't want to be a healer because of the stigma around it. um,
So what was the moment? When did you realize that you actually could do intuitive readings?
well, it was like I was doing the cranial stuff. You know, as a body
Yes.
oriented therapist for a decade. And I started taking courses in intuitive readings from like, there's like Theta Healing, there's Barbara Brennan. I was like around 26 and I started taking all these courses. And that fascinated me. I was like, wow, how can my mind extract all of this information? Like, and it's not even me, you know? And I really wanted to develop that skill. So I just kept doing it, you know? I would call up all my friends, be like, let me give you a reading, you know? And in time, uh, you know, it was a long process, you know, because, you know, if someone was going to give me money and like want me to do healing, and I was like, okay, wow, I have to truly deliver. Like, you know, I had to have the confidence. So that took a while.
Wow, so
But
you actually learned this like from courses and practicing like a skill?
exactly, yeah. So again, it's like I had the luxury of already being a therapist, so, and also doing the cranial stuff. Remember how I said in the cranial world, um, you know, the foundation of that is meditation and mindfulness. Like, how do you become mindful of your body, your mental state, to be able to help another person and their body and their mental state, right? And they systematically train you how to make the distinction of like, what is me and my body, right? And my body story. Does my body story have pain, right? And then how about my client? Does my client's story have pain? You know, so we really dissected how our mind perceives information in a way that we're able to facilitate healing for another person, right? So I already had this technique for almost a decade, and I wanted to add on the intuitive readings. I was like, oh wow, wouldn't it be cool if I can like help someone and their ability to heal their body and also heal their entire self, meaning their mind, and the world that they create.
So first you trained yourself in intuitive, having this heightened intuition. You could do intuitive readings, and then you discovered that you can do healing, the downloads, or it was at the same time. You wanted to do both from the beginning, and you learned to do both.
Like I said, I always had one foot in, one foot out in terms of being a healer. I never even used that word in my 20s. I was like afraid of it, you know? And again, because when you're younger, you have all these aspirations and like I said, remember when I was 38, I was like, oh, what's my legacy? Like, I haven't done
Mm.
anything. I'm not a CEO, or I didn't finish med school, or this or that. What am I doing with my life? But then I realized, wow, I've been helping people since, you know, I was like 20,
Forever.
22, you know, deeply affecting their lives in a way that has high value. And and that's not quantifiable at all. You know, you can't like put that in your CV, you know. Oh, you know, I don't know if it was you or someone else. I had a conversation in which by the time I turned 30, because I used to count how many sessions, you know, once I went um, beyond 10,000 sessions, I stopped counting. I just didn't even count anymore.
10,000 readings?
10,000 sessions in which
Session.
that I helped someone so deeply, you know, like with
Downloads and
yeah,
yeah.
with talk
Wow.
therapy, with body work, you know, just being with someone for a whole hour where my full attention is like, okay, how can I help this person? Right? How can I get them to fulfill their needs and their desires and their goals, whether it be through the body or through the mind or manifesting the kind of life that they want. Um, so I was like 30 when I already surpassed 10,000 sessions. So after that, I didn't count anymore. So that is a legacy, right? So by 38, I don't even know how many sessions, how many people I've touched and moved. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
I feel like
a
we're kind
lot
of
of
bouncing
people. I
around.
mean, a lot of people. You touched and moved a lot of people. I am one of them. The influence you had on my life, and you still have, is very palpable. Um, so you would say your mission in life is to help one person at a time to transform their lives.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just do my part, which is to inspire them, to motivate them, and give them the tools, you know, as much as they can, of course, uh, then I've done my job. So then, you know, when I arrive to that, and peop my peers help me arrive to it, right? Because I would tell people, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything with my life. What have I done? And people are like, I think you need to reevaluate, you know, that line of thinking, right? It's like you've influenced
Yes.
people's lives one person at a time, and it's not quantifiable, right? So once I
Yes.
realized that I was fulfilling my destiny, then then my world was completely different, and that's when I started to venture off into um, Europe, and you know, I just just being this kind of free bird. Before I was always a free bird, but I felt like I had to prove something or do something because that was the, you know, living in America, that's like the American way. Like, oh, you know, when I was doing the med school stuff, like people had this drive to be a doctor, not to help people, but for the prestige or what it brings.
But that is not specific only to the US. Same applies to people who are very driven in Europe. They and go to these into these high professions like being a lawyer, being doctors.
Probably my bias.
You
My
love it so much
experience,
in Europe.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like bypass. I'm not seeing uh, what. Yeah. Well, I guess yeah. I'm just speaking from my experience, but you know, we've been blessed, you and I, to live in different countries because we've had this conversation
Yes.
before, where you get
Yeah.
a much more expansive or a more full view of the world, knowing how it is to live in other countries.
So coming back to my question, so how do you see people going from that concept, you know, that they've created, like I did, from something on the paper or in my mind? When do you know that the person is ready, or how does it happen to translate that into reality?
Yeah. So going back to me tapping into that part of my mind that's infinite, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know this space, everyone knows this space. When you close your eyes and you become receptive or contemplative, you go into that infinite space, right? Or
Yes.
you know, when you climb a mountain or you're on a cliff overlooking an ocean, all of a sudden your mind and your body, that embodied feeling, starts to expand in all directions. Like, oh, I can breathe, right?
Yes.
Since you're in New York City or right next to New York City, you can feel that
Jersey City.
that
Yeah.
that busyness feeling. You get restricted because you have
Yes.
to kind of protect yourself from all of the different forces around you, the Indian, all this information and stuff like that. But again, when you go to the country and you go to a place where you can finally expand your field of awareness, right? It's like you can breathe again, you get expansive. So the same way, when I do an intuitive reading, I get very expansive, right? And then I get so expansive that I touch that part of our inner reality and our external reality, because I'm also sensing the room, I'm sensing the city that I'm in, and I just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until I hit that part of our consciousness, that is everything, right? It's infinite. So then when I ask the questions from that space, I go, okay, what does Daniela need, right? And then I take a pause, because I don't want to conjure it up for my own psyche. I take a pause and I allow that information to come in. And then again, remember how I said it took me a while to develop these skills?
Yes.
So it took me a while to develop the distinction of what's mine and what's not mine. And then the information that's not mine, where's it coming from, right? Because
Okay.
is it authentic? Is it not authentic? Is it like of a lower vibration, meaning like, is it information that's designed to manipulate someone, or is it truly coming from a higher place? So that also needs to be developed, right? And so it's a responsibility for someone that wants to do intuitive readings to really know exactly where you're getting your information and how you're getting your
Wow.
information. It really needs to come from a very high vibration or a high place, right? So in that sense, it's really good to get training,
Yes.
to get guidance, and not just carelessly. And you see this a lot in this world where spirituality is getting very popular, it's trending. Um,
Yes.
and you see people exploring consciousness, but they're doing it, I don't want to say inappropriately or not having the best guidance, but yeah, it's just good to know who you're learning it from, or the group in which you're exploring consciousness, because it's a whole other world. And again, it's not made to be taken lightly.
I think it's the most important aspect of our existence because, as I was saying, um, uh, everything I think is an energy field somewhere, and at a certain point, it translates into the physical world. But I don't know when is that point, or what does it take for somebody to make that transformation, good or bad, because if we put our attention on something bad, that will also take place. But I don't know. So can you talk about how is that transition happening from the energy field into reality, and how fast?
I'll use the lens of quantum physics, but again, if I'm going to use the lens of quantum physics, what we're doing is we're using a metaphor to describe something else, right? It's almost like
Okay.
in many spiritual practices, the spiritual teacher will use parables, you know?
Yes.
Like one
Mm-hmm.
example is like, in the Christianity, it's like Jesus would always use parables to teach people, right?
Yes.
And also in all traditions, we use stories, right, to describe something else. We'll use the story of quantum physics to describe this thing that you're talking about like, how does something that lives in my mind, right, go from
Yeah.
nothing to something in my mind to, incubating it in my mind, planning it in my mind, and then I birth it, right? Whether it be a
Yes.
project or a way of being, a way of life, physically moving somewhere, physically building a company. It's all the same thing, right?
Yes.
Healing and all of these things. And it can get complex, but it can also be simple.
Mm-hmm.
So through the story or the lens of quantum physics, there are these discrete particles. We call it, what do we call it? Quantized particles or something, whatever. So, but what is
Yeah.
it? It's really, what we're seeing is the top of a wave, right? Now we're using the
Okay.
metaphor of the ocean, right? So you see
Mm-hmm.
a top of a wave, and at the top is a particle. It's a quantized piece of something bigger, right? So
Oh,
a
okay.
light wave, photons, when you see a photon, you're seeing the top of the wave, right? But that
Yes.
photon is connected to a whole ocean. So what is that ocean? The
Okay.
ocean, that's the field, the quantum field. So if we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about light waves, that's the photon field of all the millions of photons popping out, right? So for the ocean, there are millions of waves. You know, a wave comes in, you see a photon, the way it goes back to the ocean. Another wave comes up, you see another photon. So the photon or the particle is finite, right? It's
Yes.
quantized. It's a discrete piece of information, right? And many discrete informations create our physical universe, right? But underneath those discrete parts is the infinite ocean, and that's quantum field theory, right? So beneath the infinite ocean, right, you go below the whatever these technical terms, max Planck length, you know, it just goes into the vacuum of space. It's a whole other world, and in the world of physics, they call it a sea of infinite potential, right? So your mind, if you can go, you know, deep enough into that infinite mindset, that embodiment of what's what's possible, a sea of infinite possibilities, a sea of infinite possibilities for Daniela to pursue acting, to pursue anything that her heart's desires, right? So on one level, there are these millions and billions of infinite possibilities, realities that you can explore, and perhaps, you know, in other dimensions you are exploring them, and maybe not, right? So when I do an intuitive reading and I connect to what is possible for you, and you're like, oh wow, I've been thinking, I've been souping this up from that sea of infinite possibilities as potential of what I could be doing. And for me, um, I'm tapping into your wants and your needs and your desires from that space of infinite possibilities. Why? Because that's the cosmos saying, hey, what are your needs? What are your desires? What would you like to experience in this world, right? And I'm just the deliverer of that message, right? I'm saying, hey, Daniela, you can do it. Hey, Daniela, you can do this. And this is the strategy. And I'm just channeling it, right? And that's the universe supporting you. And the universe saying, hey, do you really want to do this? We'll support you, right? And I'm just a vehicle for that. So when you do change your mind, right, and you say, oh, I want to pursue something else, and all of a sudden I'm channeling that, right? It's the same thing. It's the universe going like, okay, you can do this, which is the acting, and you can also do that. And then on top of that, there's something even bigger happening, meaning like you can do all of it. You can put it all together, right? All the skills. And I think that's what we were talking about in our other session. Like
Yes.
you're doing the podcast now, and it's like all the skills that you've been developing as an actress go hand in hand with the podcast. Go hand because
Yes.
you know it's your show, it's your living room show, right? And someone that doesn't have necessarily the training, the actress training, and all, you know, would need a little bit of that. For you, it's become second nature because you're like, oh, I've been doing this for quite a time. I don't need that. Perhaps you need more something else. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
see how there is a greater intelligence working here.
Yes. And So in order for this to, what you imagine to take place in reality, what is the recipe, let's say, what is needed for the person to keep working at it and imagining it at the same time? What do you think makes some people manifest, some faster, some slower, and some never manifest? Or are these desires or goals for some people just stay as unmanifested in the real world, and why?
When we come into this world, right, into this finite dimension we call Earth, and whatever, however you want to say it, we don't just pop up and we're just like, oh, we're just a sea of energy, a sea of potential. You know, we become manifested into our form, right? And with that comes our DNA, right? Which is like, okay, I came from this family is part of this country, right? And it's like, so it's, you don't just spontaneously have blonde hair versus black hair versus brown hair, right? It's like, so we're following some sort of ordering of things, right? It's like, okay, we have this DNA, and the DNA that we have, there's gene expressions that enable us to, you know, to be angry all the time, or be happy all the time, to be naive all the time, or this or that. You know, it's a very complex algorithmic soup of information, right? And information is not just coming from our genes and our body, but also coming from culture, coming from our life experiences, and how do we navigate all of that, right?
Yes, yeah.
And you can have a lifetime of just thinking about that and not going anywhere, right? So then you're just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how can we narrow it down into, in a way that we can be able to change it, right? That we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, we can connect it with it, and we can transform it. Um, so we can do it through our genes, the expression of our genes, right? Um, we can do it uh, through our belief structure, right? Because our subconscious mind, right? So we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And when we meditate, we have the ability to bring them together and make them coherent, right? They can sing one song versus separate songs, right? So here in neuroscience, it's like, so the brain is working in different parts, right?
Yes.
Again, so
Yeah.
when we do meditation, there are meditation techniques that make it coherent. It becomes one complete unit, right? It's singing one song versus having like 10
Mm.
different radios all playing different songs, right? And all of a sudden just
Okay.
becomes
Yeah.
noise, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you can become very powerful when you know how to connect in that way. You can link the different parts of your brain into a whole symphony of one song, a very powerful song, right? That's a neuroscience perspective. We don't have to go crazy spirituality. It's just like there's too many conversations happening in the brain, and those
Mm-hmm.
conversations are in conflict. They're not in harmony with each other. So then the
Mm-hmm.
question is, how can we get them to be in harmony with each other?
Yeah.
So aside from intuitive readings, there are other techniques. One is called applied kinesiology, and applied kinesiology, you use your body to help you determine what is true or false. So really, you narrow things down to binary, strong or weak.
Okay.
You know, so it's like
Hmm.
body. You know, do I have this conflict in myself, right? You know, and you hear me talking about this. Oh, you have a conflict, right? Which
Yeah, and
is,
you tell me I'm gonna test your muscles right now. I'm gonna ask your body right now. You tell me this during the sessions.
yeah. So it's like, oh, okay. So when you know, going back to those first sessions, and you were like, you know, I'm having challenges, da 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 da. So I muscle tested, and and again, I would get information about you, to narrow things down, I go, okay, are we going to look at the genes? No. Are we going to look at family? Yes. Are we going to look at grandparents? No. Are we going to look at parents? Yes. Mom? No. Dad? Yes. So I narrow it down, right? And then I come to you and I go, okay, we need to explore your father. And you're all like, uh-oh, here we are. Right? So I'm using many different techniques to arrive to the answer, right? Or to the strategy, or what we need to investigate, um, which helps me to have the confidence, right? So it's like I'll get the message, but then I'll use different techniques to narrow it down, being like, okay, so it is your father, because originally I got dad, but then I was like, oh, is it really? It's like, oh, here it comes again, or so I get in the way. So I would have to do the muscle testing, be like, okay, in fact, it is the father. And then I report back to you. And I go, okay, we're going to explore father. And, and then I ask you to talk a little bit, right?
Yes, but this is quite, I mean, for somebody who's not trained in this, it's quite a surreal experience. I mean, I'm here in Jersey City, you're there in Portugal, and you're telling me, okay, Daniela, I'm gonna muscle test you right now. I'm gonna ask your body these questions. This is not something that easy to grasp, based on what I know about the world. So yeah, I was quite shocked by what you're doing, and the result was after the first session, I felt my mind would not go through the same channels that it was used to go for so many years. It was a path that so known to my mind about my father, and all of a sudden my mind was like, no, no. I wanted to go there, but it's like I couldn't. No.
That's
So
amazing. Well, you were ready. You were ready. It's not like, again, it's not, we're not in the land of manipulation here. We're in the land of yeah, there it is, the forgiveness. We're in the land of like, finally, right? We're giving ourselves permission to have all the things that we want to have, right? And again, remember how I said, oh, when I'm channeling, it's the universe like saying, hey, we want to support you, we want to nurture you, we want to give you the kind of life experiences that you want, because that's also our purpose, right? That's the purpose of the
yes.
universe, right? To being like, okay, let's have these crazy experiences, but let's have them be good experiences, right? When you are in your suffering story and you are like having challenges, you're like, this is a story that I don't want, right? So then the challenge is like, okay, let's do it. Let's do the work, right? And then what does that mean? Like, what does doing the work feel like? It doesn't have to be like a traditional spiritual practice, but the work is just slowing down, right? Just noticing what's going on here. Are there too many conversations having in my head, right? And then what are the conversations? You can't do this, you can't do that. I have resentments here, blah, 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 right? It's just slowing down and being like, okay, I'm going to investigate why I'm having these experiences, right?
But that is complicated. I mean, the mind is so used to playing the same thoughts again and again and again. And that's what you're used to for years. Something has to happen to make that shift. And sometimes it's a dramatic event that happens, or it's somebody like you who comes in and brings those downloads and frees up energy and helps the mind focus on what the universe wants you to, or is happy to support you to experience the good in life, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like, how do you want to have your lessons? Do you want to have them by living life and life is going to show you the lessons, or to bypass some of that by doing this kind of work, right? So we're accelerating the process. We need to have an example here. Like everyone wants to step into a relationship that really feels good and nurturing for them, right? And then
Yes.
sometimes, oftentimes we have all these different habits, right? And some of the habits are in conflict, right? And it could be learned habits, right? Meaning like, you know, when I was younger, I was exposed to these kind of interactions with my parents or my caregivers or my peers, right? So then how do you change those habits? So this work is really good with that, because what we're doing is we're working at the level of the subconscious, and we're also working at the level of consciousness itself, right? We're changing how consciousness expresses itself through us.
When do you know you're efficient in your downloads? Because sometimes, for example, I felt some of your downloads, your healing, I felt right away, like after the session about my father. Some I still don't feel like it's happening the way we talked about. Maybe it takes longer.
Yeah,
So how,
the
yeah.
universe is mysterious. That's why I've been recording the sessions, so then you can have them. Because sometimes, you know, people will report back and being like, oh, you know, there was a session and it took 6 months for me to finally arrive to exactly what you just said, forgiveness, you know, forgiveness of somebody. Um, so sometimes it's nice to have the recordings or to keep a journal, because sometimes, like when I'm channeling, it's not coming from me. I'm reading your
Mm.
energy, right? And then if I don't know you and maybe it's our first session, like it, remember how I said in the beginning, it's whenever I work with someone, it's like you're handing me your computer, right? And then I open your computer
Yes.
and I've never seen it before. And I'm like, how have you organized your computer? Or did you organize it? You know, my computer is organized in my head, but if someone were to look at it, they're like, oh my God, it's a disaster, right? Because I have folders that are just like, I call it, right? And that's just everything goes in there so I can organize it later.
But you're certain that every download you do works
Yeah.
and
So
it will
again,
produce results.
yeah. So for me, having that cognitive science background really helped, because I practically have a degree in mathematics. The math really freed my mind to think in creative ways that, when I say creative, it's more conceptual. You know, I could be very conceptual. So, you know, numbers can hide in other numbers, right? For a later time. And really that's how the mind works. So it allowed me to, you know, if you were to think of the mind as creating structures, right? So then you would have to apply like algorithmic kinds of thinking, right? So the same kind of algorithmic um, kinds of processes that you would create with artificial intelligence, that the mind is already doing it, right? It's sorting information, it's tracking information. So I do that very fast, right? Very quickly, because I'm connected to that cosmic energy and also connected to your energy. I just quickly just ask the right questions, right? I'm all like, okay, what does Daniela need right now, given the information that she gave me? And then I allow consciousness to sort it out for me, and I witness it. It starts going into your computer and it's like quickly um, sorting and tracking and looking for the right answer, and then it lights up, right? And then I'll do the muscle testing and this and that, and I go, okay, is it true? Is it really this? Did something happen when she was 8 years old? And then the muscle testing will be like, yes, it's 8 years old, and then I just keep narrowing it down. Is it this? Is it that? Yes or no? This or that? Yes or no? Until we arrive,
Mm.
and I can do it very fast. So I do it in a few seconds, right? And I come out and I go, okay, something happened when you were 8 years old, da da da, and it's associated with this, and this kind of happened. It's because very quickly I was sorting that information out, right? From that
Wow.
sea
Yeah.
of information, right? I'm not saying in order to be a powerful, intuitive person, you have to have a math background or a cognitive science background, but it just helps to be able to describe it and to be able to convert it into numbers, or in a way that another person could have an understanding. right?
So every download you do, even if I cannot recognize a result, it will eventually have an effect. It will
Yes.
materialize. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it took me a while to have that confidence, right?
Yes, talk to me about this, because it was so surprising to me how confident you were about, you were telling me like you need only these sessions for healing. And when I came back, but I still don't see this. No, we are good.
When I'm channeling, I'm not just channeling from one source, right? So I'm always triple, if I make a claim for someone, right? And I go, like, I'll just give an example. I remember one session, like it was our first session and we just went straight there, meaning like, it was a traumatizing experience for her, Here, let me just pause. Okay, so I'm going to just say it, so it was a rape story, right? So in a first session, how can someone go straight there, right? Because the person, that's their desire, right? They're all like, I've been living with these challenges and I'm in a place where I want to face it. Then we talk about like a bigger perspective, like what does that actually mean inside you? Oh, it's not really about rape, it's about, you know not having a voice, being like persecuted, being controlled, not being able to, being confined to a space, you're just not feeling yourself, right? So
Yeah.
then when I start giving people downloads, I go, would you like to know what it feels like? That doesn't have to be part of your world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then the subconscious going like, you know what, I've arrived to a place where I don't I don't have to understand it, I don't need to have it, right? And then I connect to that cosmic energy and I go, okay, what kind of energies in the form of feelings, emotions, new belief structures, that will really help this person, either it be me or you or whoever's listening, uh, to really arrive to that place where being persecuted or not having a voice or or being confined to a cell, you feel like, you're not yourself, like what kind of energies can we download for that person so they can feel free and open
Mm-hmm.
and participate in a universe that is just like really there for them and for all beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I take a pause and I wait for that information to come in, and then I just channel it. So really I was like, okay, what is, how do we, going back to those sessions where you arrive to forgiveness with your father, um, we downloaded like the feelings of like, what does it feel like to be on the other side, right? To have forgiveness, to be at peace, to be able to live in a world, the world that you're participating in, where that doesn't have to be that baseline experience, right?
Yeah, what is your meditation practice? Do you meditate every day? For how long?
Yeah, so I have the luxury to meditate a lot throughout the day. I don't have like that 9 to 5, but that's why people call me, because of my connection to the deeper parts of our reality, right? So I find
Yes.
that's my duty. My duty is to meditate every day to get myself to a place where I'm a clear channel for that person, and to also be vibrating in a frequency where there's hope, there's gratitude, right? So in a way, I guess I am working, right? If that's my job is to meditate and get
Yes.
myself in that optimal state of like
Yeah.
well-being, gratitude, so then I can be there for the person that needs help and assistance. Then okay, I'm always working. I'm in the process of creating very simple step-by-step meditations that will connect you to
Yes.
your intuition, right? And I call it the Intuitive Mind Essentials Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 is just like 4 basic meditations, like 20 minutes. I'm making them right now. Uh,
Yes.
and uh, and they're designed in a way that that take you step by step into this whole landscape of, you know, how can I support myself? How can I organize my brain, right? How can I tap into my intuition to be able to manifest like Abel, right? When I say like Abel, it's more like to be strategic, right? And to do it in a way that's easy, step by step, affordable, and accessible, right? So what I've done is I've taken some very deep concepts and made it kind of simple, right? And that's Essentials 1. Essentials 2 is more, okay, let me show you the map. And then Essentials 2 is like, how do we use this map to do things? Like, for example, you know, the one meditation is to go up into this cosmic light, right? It's like, how do you raise the frequency of your mind, right? So you are tapping into this frequency that's very high in its vibration. Let's take a strategy here. If you want to manifest, say like, oh, I would love to have this dream job, right? Then
Yes.
what we do is we download ourselves, and this could be a superficial download, meaning like we create it. What does it feel like to have this job, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, this job is like, it's remote, right? I want to live in an island, right? Even though my dream job is like to be, you know, a web developer or something. So what does it feel like to be a web developer on an island, like on Costa Rica? So then you can superficially download that for yourself, right? So then you're telling your universe, oh, I love the feeling of this, right? And then
Yes.
one strategy is like memory reconsolidation. Okay, now why don't you ask your subconscious, okay, I want to create these feelings of having a dream job. So what
Yes.
is going to get in the way of that? Those feelings, right? And your subconscious is going to be like, oh, there it is. Dun, dun, dun. Somebody's saying, no,
Yes.
you can't have that. Oh, no, you're undeserving. Where did it come from? Oh, it's coming from, you know, this parent, or it's coming from whatever, right? So that's a strategy. So it's like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
we've identified what is saying no in your energy. And then on what we do is we apply memory consolidation, which is once you conjure up a memory, maybe conjure up a really good memory where it's very potent, right? And it's like, oh, I remember when, you know, that person was so angry and was just like, beating me with words or beating me physically or whatever, really putting it in my body, and I embodied it, right? I want to
Yeah.
create this future, but all of a sudden, no, you can't have it, and it's in my body.
Mm.
So now you have a window. You have 30 seconds, right? This is your time to really transform it, right? So then the strategy is like, I teach the person to really listen to their intuition, be guided from that cosmic place. The universe is saying, hey, we want you to have that. So
Mm-hmm.
this is how you can have it. So what is the energy? Maybe you do want to arrive to forgiveness, but you're not there yet. So what's the strategy to get you closer to it? So the strategy is saying, hey, you are worth it. You know, you can have it. You know, we're going to give you hope, and we're going to give you the steps, right? Here's the first step. Here's the second step, right? We're going to inspire you to do more, right? So, so yeah, so the meditations kind of like guide you through that, and
Mm-hmm.
then eventually we do the big downloads, but it takes skills. We have to layer the skills. But once you can start downloading the big downloads and being like, you know what, just like cut to the chase, like, I want to get there right now. How am I going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
ultimate energy would be whatever, but we'll just say forgiveness, since we've been talking about it. And it's like, okay, well,
Yes.
I don't feel like I can forgive. What's the next best thing? And then maybe I can do it tomorrow or the next day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, you have the tools. You're excited. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, something's happening here. I'm being empowered,
Wow.
right?
Mm-hmm. So
So
you put
then,
these courses together, with these meditations, and you give people these tools, right?
yes,
Through
the
this.
basic tools. And the reason why I am creating these very simple meditations is because I want people to enter a community that I'm creating called the Soft Focus community, where everyone has done these meditations and everyone has the tools, and we get to apply them. A
How do you
circle.
apply them?
Yeah, so once you join this community, I'm creating these different meetups, and they're called circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all situated around a theme or a goal, you know, from entrepreneurship to healing, right? So some circles could be about business develop, whatever it is, business development, um, anything entrepreneurship or healing, right? So for a healing circle, it's only 4 to 5 people can join because they're 2 hours long, because we want everyone to be centered. One person at a time is centered in the center, where everybody gets to practice their intuition to help that person, you know. So then you're learning
Yes.
how to give and receive.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they're called they're called circles, but they're virtual.
Mm-hmm. You're quite an extraordinary person, very powerful person in my view, who can do great things and easily. um, but are there other people out there like you? Are you the only one in the world?
No, we're out there. More, you know, more and more people are connecting to these energies, right? More and more people are becoming, um, being able to tap into that subtleness, right? You know, before people were intrigued about yoga and wellness and this and that, and it's just a natural progression to go from oh, I have a body. I feel like I have a body. Oh, I can move my body. Oh, I can make my body flexible. It opens them up, right?
Yes.
And that's one way, right? Going from the
Mm-hmm.
body to the mind. But you can go the other way. You
Mm-hmm.
can go from the mind to the body. There's many different ways. I was a dancer, so that was my way. You know, being a dancer. It wasn't yoga, right? So I think what I'm saying is more and more people are taking those steps to like connect with themselves in many different ways, and then they just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper until they realize like, oh wow, there's these other dimensions to myself that I'm like, I can start to connect with, you know, nature, other dimensions of my mind. So it's a natural progression. So I feel like this course and this community is relevant for the time, because now people are going to, you know, they're curious, right? And they're already playing with this energy already. You know, people are taking all kinds of substance to enhance their conscious experiences, but now this is like going like, hey, you
Yes.
don't need a substance. You know, you can actually use the energy of your mind to be able to connect to these other dimensions and use it for a higher purpose, right? And this
Yeah.
community,
People. Yeah. People take DMT, ayahuasca. It's very it's trending right now. People are fascinated by these right now.
yeah. So in this community, it's an example of how we can support each other through the frequencies of our mind that we create with our own intention and our own perception. It's very clean. Um, and people are empowered because then you don't have to take a substance in order to have an awakened experience, right? You can be in a community
Yeah.
of people that are really striving to help you, right, achieve your goals, you know, whether you're a VC or business development or healing or this or that. And that, I'm excited about that. Like I get to just really watch that unfold, and I don't have to always be, you know, the healer doing one-on-one sessions, right? I can witness other people and support them, support the group, because in the beginning I'll be facilitating, so I'll be kind of coaching people to be able to do guiding them for the best readings and strategies.
You're saying there are more people like you. Have you? But I've never met somebody like you. I've met many yoga instructors, many healers of different kinds, but nobody like you. Have you ever had a client who said, "Oh, I've done the same type of work healing with somebody similar like you, but now I choose you"? Have you had that?
Yeah, all the time. Oh, I have a twin flame. So, we have many soulmates, right? We don't have one
Okay, yeah.
soulmate. We have many soulmates, meaning like
Oh,
we have like a deep connection with other people that transcend, that connection. Meaning like you can meet someone in a coffee shop and be like, "Oh, I feel like I know you," right? Even though you don't, know that person. But
yes, yes, yes.
and that could be a soulmate, right? But
Mhm.
meaning like, there's these other possibilities that you as an energetic entity, or the energy is familiar. We don't need to put meaning to it. So that could be a soulmate, maybe not. But if it is a soulmate, then it's like, um, there's something extra in the connection, right? It doesn't mean, oh, we have to get married now because we're soulmates. It's no, you could be brothers and sisters, you could be siblings, you could be best friends, but there's that extra something that really
Yes.
that really put,
You feel a connection, yeah, right away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to
Hmm.
be a good connection. It could be a bad one. Meaning like someone can activate you, right? You can have that boss that's just like activating you, making you feel so horrible and bad. And then they come to me for a healing and being like, "Oh, I think this is a soulmate situation, where that person is like really showing you your stuff, showing you your." So
Oh,
in a way they're supporting you by revealing your shadows, right? So then
oh, okay.
maybe that's your belief structure, like, oh, I have to get my lessons this way, I have to get my lessons the hard way. And that having a
Mm,
boss that's giving it to you the hard way, you know that's being
yeah.
expressed, right? So then we want to change your belief structure and like getting your lessons the hard way. What if you want to get your lessons in a loving way? And then all of a sudden you go and you see your boss, and your boss is no longer is loving you instead of hating you. Right? And you're like, oh my God, what happened? You changed your beliefs around like, I need to get it the hard way.
So you said you have a twin flame?
Yeah, I have a twin flame, and this person is a he, and it's not romantic or anything.
Yes.
Who has the same skill set? But he's much younger. He's like 27, and he's a therapist in Germany. He does core energetics and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we do a lot of healing work on each other, and we have a very
Mhm.
similar energy. Like whenever we do healings for each other, it's literally like, oh, I'm doing healing work for myself too, even though I'm healing you, because we have the same
Ah,
story. You know, not
okay.
necessarily exactly the same, but the energy is the same, is very similar,
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
similar skill
Yes.
set. So that was
Mhm.
nice to meet someone like that.
Well, Abel, we are at the end. Thank you so much for all this wealth of information. I am going to let people know where they can find you. At your website is dot space, and
Perfect.
definitely have a look at the training, the courses you are putting together. They can also have individual sessions with you, right? You're
Yeah.
still going to do those
Yeah,
healing
I love
session.
them. I'm
Yeah.
loving all my clients right now. It's so nice to really like, especially this time, right? This like chaotic time, to really have that clarity and go from confusion to creating, participating, right? Making a world,
Yes.
a better place, a brighter place.
Yes.
So,
Well,
and
you helped me since COVID hit. I was having a hard time, and when I felt like I was too overwhelmed, I will reach out to you. You remember I was telling you, Abel, I just need your light, your energy, because everything is confusing around me. So you helped me go through that time up until recently, because it continued to be chaotic, and we're still not out of the woods, especially here in the US.
but you're creating.
So
Now you're creating.
now yes, I stepped into the creating energy. Um, and Thank you so much for today. for myself, I experienced the sessions with you, which were life-changing for me. And I'm looking forward to the courses and the community you're creating. I will definitely be part of that. People can follow you on Instagram. I love your Instagram. It's filled with positive videos and pictures. Beautiful. You're a tremendous photographer as well, and you have beautiful photographer friends.
Instagram, I just love
But
sharing pretty videos and pictures. It's all, I love
so
being in the
pretty.
creation energy, like
Yes,
creating.
you are.
Anything positive is nice.
You definitely are, and I love your Instagram. So I'll provide people that information too. And thank you so much for today.
Thank you.